This is Jim Kirk. Jim Kirk is the pastor at Geneva Campus CRC in Madison. Just fresh off of our Classis meeting a couple days ago, and Jim was able to share a lot of the exciting things going on there in Madison and at Geneva Campus, and thought, why not share it for the rest of us who weren't able to be at the meeting. So take it away, Jim.
Thanks, Zach. I thought that was one of the best Classis Wisconsin meetings I've been to. It was really encouraging, and there's just a lot of good stuff happening and good engagement, and really enjoyed it. It was my first time in Delavan too.
I also have never been to Delavan CRC, and that's great. And Pastor Tim's doing some really great stuff for the classes, so it was kind of cool to be in his building. But yeah, you're right. I mean, between some of the things you were able to share, and Pastor Koo always has the coolest updates. So always getting to hear about what Pastor Koo's up to, and yeah, we're really part of a strong and blessed Classis. Anyways.
Yeah. So I told you I wanted to share just the two things that I'm really excited about right now at Geneva, and one of them we've been working on for a while, and the other one is completely unexpected. And so the first one was the main thing that I brought to our Classis meeting, is a proposal that we brought to the Classis about us supporting a new campus pastor for the UW with a partnership between the Classis and other churches in Wisconsin. And I'll just give a little bit of background for people who may not be familiar with Geneva Campus Church, but already I feel like there's so much to celebrate in the history here of Geneva and what God has done in Wisconsin, because Geneva started as a campus ministry with students and faculty in 1967. And for its first 25 years, it was really a ministry of our Classis, and it was supported by the Classis, and financially, and I'm sure otherwise. And it grew over that time with some of those faculty members having students, and students hanging around and staying in the community. And so it became this multi-generational church, that at some point moved its worship to Sunday morning. And in the mid 90s, it got permission from the Classis to organize as a church. And since then, we've just continued to grow as a congregation while continuing to be a campus ministry at the UW. So the tension that we've been wrestling with is, how do we do both? Serve the needs of a campus ministry and also serve the needs of a growing congregation. And what's become clear at some point is that we really needed that both these ministries needed dedicated effort. And we brought this proposal to the Classis to invite other partners to help us to continue to serve the campus through a full-time dedicated campus pastor. And so I was really pleased with the engagement on this, and we're going to bring it back in February with some more details about how we might fund it. But I'm really optimistic and hopeful that this could be the direction for us to go to really maintain this historic ministry, but also allow Geneva to dedicate some resources to the congregation. And so we're asking for the Classis to come alongside us in that, but also we're approaching individual churches and inviting them to be partners with us, and had some great connections at the Classis, and looking forward to follow up.
One of the strengths of Classis Wisconsin, and it was mentioned, you and I worked together on the Classis Renewal Committee, but there's this real, movement maybe seems too strong, but this real feeling amongst the members of Classis Wisconsin that we should be planting churches again. It's been a while since we tried something. So, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that, you got really good traction after talking about, hey, there's an opportunity for a growth in a ministry. And then, members of the Classis said, great, how can we help?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that is really concrete that we can be doing together.
Mm.
But on the issue of church planting too, I really think campus ministry is pretty important for developing new leaders and also reaching the next generation in a secular society, that's more and more post-Christian, where it's in campus ministry that oftentimes we learn how to share the gospel and reach people who have no experience with the Christian faith.
Mm.
And that and I've seen that work really well in other places where sometimes it's those leaders coming up out of campus ministry that become the church planters who have the experience and the passion for reaching new contexts.
Is that that's because they've had to do that engagement?
Well, yes. Well, two things.
World?
Yeah. One thing is just because campus ministry, you're on a 4-year cycle and you have to learn how to start new things.
Mm.
In campus ministry, you're always doing outreach. Every year you're doing new student outreach, and you're you just have to be able to gather community, and you learn how to do that well. And that's a big skill in church planting.
Hmm.
But also I think it's about communicating the gospel in ways that deal with people's doubts and questions, invite in people who are outside the church. Church plants oftentimes are just great ways of doing evangelism because they're very flexible and open communities that are inviting people in really intentional ways. And so I think you also learn how to do that in campus ministry, reaching so many secular people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is it possible for a church like mine, 150 years old and not near a campus, to do some of those flexible, outward-facing things?
Yeah, I think it is, but I think it takes some intentionality and commitment to say we want to do this. How do we do this? And it might require change from us.
And campus ministries, kind of just out of who they are and where they are, do that out of necessity.
Yeah, well, at least at a large public university like the UW. Yeah. So that's the one thing I'm excited about. I'm really, looking forward to seeing where this campus pastor idea goes and the next steps for that. But the other thing that's happened in this past 30 days is we had an opportunity come to us to purchase some church property, which Geneva has never had in 55 years. But in the last 5 years, we've explored and weren't really able to find something that would work before the pandemic. And then kind of it all went on hold for a couple of years. But then at the end of August, a property came to our attention just 2 miles away from where we are now, off campus, but still really close. And it just, the location is really ideal. It's a really cute little church building that we are really excited about. And so on September 9th, we put an offer on it. And about 10 days ago, our offer was accepted. And this is really exciting for us. I mean, it's really new and it's going to require change from us and in all sorts of ways. But we really feel like it's an opportunity that God just opened up and put in our lap, and we are stepping into it. And so it's moving a little bit farther away from campus, but we or actually feel like it might open up new opportunities. So the neighborhood where it is it's on the near west side of Madison off University Avenue. And it's in a neighborhood where some of our families live, but it's also a neighborhood that's really popular, especially with graduate students. There's a lot of graduate student apartments in this area. And it's probably only a mile away from the main UW's graduate student housing. And so it could be, make it, even easier for us to reach some people. And we are supposed to close on November 18th. So we're going through the process of closing, and but it's all going really well, and it seems like it's God is going to do it. So we are we're entering into a real season of change and opportunity, and we're excited, we're nervous, we're a little bit overwhelmed, but we are really looking forward to seeing what happens this year.
Yeah, well, perhaps no other church in Classis knows what it's like to not have a building. So talk. I mean, maybe the rest of us have taken this for granted, but talk like when you say, having this building provides some opportunity for us. Like, what kind of opportunities does having a building create?
So, there's going to be a real learning journey here for us. But in our current situation, we've never had space that we have access to 7 days a week. We rent on Sundays. We have offices but they can't really host a sizable group of people.
Sure.
And I think our congregation is really excited about just dreaming about having Bible studies in a church that we have access to throughout the week. Children's ministry has been a big challenge for us, and having dedicated children's ministry space is going to be a huge thing for us.
Cool.
That the church has been longing for. Being able to serve the community in new ways, through having space that we have control over. I think there's going to be really creative new things that we can do that we haven't even thought of yet. One thing I'd mentioned this to you before also is there's right now in this church building, there are 2 Spanish-speaking churches that rent from the church that had been meeting there. And we are hopeful that we'd be able to continue those relationships, or at least with one of those churches, or a partner. I mean, we know what it's like to be renters, so we I think there's a real commitment to being hospitable, and we're hoping that we can have a good relationship with a church like those that are meeting there, and be able to host them well.
Does it take away your ability to be flexible? We talk about flexibility as something that's really
right. Well, I think it is. I mean, I think we are a very flexible congregation and very open to change in lots of ways, because we've had to move in the past, and there's always been a sense of uncertainty from year to year, that whether our lease was going to be renewed or something like that. And I think that's just given us a spirit of a sense of pilgrimage and being in the wilderness and trusting in God's provision. So I think we need to maintain those things we've maybe learned through our history. I think another thing about Geneva I found more in other churches that I've served is we're in each other's homes an awful lot. People regularly host church meetings in their homes, like our council meetings, elder meetings.
Well, any midweek Bible study or something like that, right?
all of it is out in people's homes. And more than when churches that I've served that had a building, all of that happened in the church, and that's great. But I also think there's something beautiful about being in each other's homes. And
my predecessor did a much better job at that, of getting students in people's homes. But there's just it. Otherwise, we have this idea that church stuff happens at church, and the rest of my life is kind of truncated from that. But it really helps you recognize that no, discipleship happens everywhere. And part of my commitment to this family at this local church is all of my life, right? It's not just the hour I give on a Sunday or maybe something in the midweek. I'm committing my home and my stuff and my time and my space to the other, which is really powerful. And so it would be kind of interesting to hear how you maintain some of that culture. I think it's something I'd like to talk to our congregation about more. Just because we have a building now doesn't mean we have to move everything
to the building.
Yeah.
Um, we have our household. We have a small group ministry. We call it household groups that are pretty ingrained in the church, and
Cool.
I see them as, continuing that value well of hosting groups in our homes. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this develops and where we go.
Yeah.
And how we use this space, and but we're really excited about it and looking forward to the next steps. So we're supposed to close on November 18th, and we don't expect to be in there before the end of January. There's going to be some work we need to do.
Sure.
And we're just in a process now of trying to figure out what needs to be done and what the priorities are. But we are, we're looking forward to it.
So let's say someone's watching today and they're a pastor or an elder at a church, or they're on the outreach committee, and they think, well, we would love to help with something like that. What could they do?
Well, I think the biggest thing for other churches in Classis is, as we think about partnering together in campus ministry, I think there's an opportunity for us to think about this just like supporting other missionaries. But this is a missionary opportunity for us right here in Wisconsin.
Sure.
That there are 30,000 undergrads, 10,000 graduate students at the UW, several thousand faculty members, and through campus ministry, we have the opportunity to reach out to them with the gospel and to create strong Christian community for believers who are on the campus. And there are a number of really strong Christian groups on campus, and we already partner with a number of them. There's plenty of need, and especially we see opportunities to serve graduate students and staff and faculty. And I would just invite missions committees and deacons and churches to consider whether this might be something that you would add to your mission support. And I'd love an opportunity to talk to anyone or share more about the ministry, and that we would be able to do it together. And I'm just looking forward to this campus pastor going out and preaching at churches or visiting in order to increase the communication and let people know what is happening.
Well, we'll be keeping you guys in your prayer as you make that transition, and God's blessings.